Computer. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another rendition of Dominate the Nation. I'm your host, Maxine Dugan, and my co-host, Bella Robinson. Hi, Bella.
Hi, Max. Thanks again for inviting me to discuss another important topic and to point out a bunch of hypocrites in life.
Oh my God, Ashton Kutcher. We've got so much horror history on Ashton. We just thought we would make a little YouTube video just to bring everybody up to speed about what a creep he really is. I mean, not only is he creepy because he wrote this letter to the judge of the Danny Masterson sentencing hearing to lessen his time for being convicted as a serial rapist. But, he's just got this huge, long history of creeping on sex workers. Ooh.
Actually, it goes back to 2010 with when he was with Demi. And we'll point out a couple things. When they first met, she was 44 and he was 25. She had a 17-year-old daughter that was very upset because the daughter had a crush on him. Okay, so they get married, which is just weird. Then all of a sudden, they're the experts on what sexual exploitation is. Then it goes back to you were talking about. Where did you see the article about him kissing his co-star when she was only 14 years old and he was 25, right? And then Danny had made some lewd joke about, hey, I bet you $10 you can't get your tongue down her throat. And he joked back, oh no, it should be 20. So all of these things go to show that he's never been sexually appropriate. And I think he gets away with it because he's good looking. See, Danny wasn't good looking. So that's why Danny not only raped women, he drugged them and raped them. But today I read an article where they're now apologizing for writing the letter, saying we just wanted leniency, but we're not just trying to discount the experience of these victims. So say the judge was only, remember the white guy that raped the girl and dragged him behind the dumpster, and his face is in school dictionaries under rapist or something, but the judge only gave that white guy 30 days and said he didn't want to ruin his life. It's what
Well, I think the LA County prosecutor's office was out to ruin not only Danny's life, but, it was their second trial. So the first one ended, I think, in a mistrial or a hung jury or something. So they retried their cases, but they brought in a bunch of stuff about their religion, about Scientology, because Scientology has rules that said you can't call the police on anybody, that it's not okay to call the cops on this rapist. So there were all these women reported to Scientology what had happened, and they just didn't do anything about it. I don't understand why they weren't charged as a co-conspirator in this felony rape trial. I don't get it.
Well, the religion thing gives them this big blanket. It's almost like qualified immunity. You got that much money in a church, and oh no, it's about your religious right and the baker and the cake and all this stupid stuff. So
okay. So the religion gives them all this immunity from prosecution. You can do whatever you want to whoever you want. And
actually, churches are allowed to run a daycare and not be licensed. If you do it, it's just the church doing the daycare. So when you think about things like that who knows if there's pedophiles and they're abusing children or and what's his, I can't remember her name, the wife on King of Queens show, that sitcom. She was in it. There's a great Netflix film about it. So, they're almost like the CIA. If someone they don't like, they target them, they follow them, they're everywhere. They'll do anything to trash your name. It's not like if you leave, you have to leave and be silent if they let you leave. It's kind of like, sounds like the mob, where there's the only way out is death. And one of the first things they do is, in order to get to the next level. So she spent like $1 million. Her mom was in it too, right?
Mm.
To get to the next level, you have to give them more money, and then you have to do these tape recordings of every sin and anything dirt. So now they got the dirt on you.
Well, so
It's
they
like
support you.
these are really stupid cult people that join up with this kind of money.
Here, let me pay
Oh,
you to extort me in the
yeah.
future. It's sort of
And
like
you know what, guys,
nomination, sort of,
when you finally get to the
masochist.
second to top tier, you're gonna love this. Where they've been promising you to teach you the secret of life, and you've given them $1 million and been doing this protection. The top tier tells you aliens are coming for us. We're really
Lord, aren't we already? I mean, I thought we dealt with the aliens in the 80s. I
but
mean,
that's religion. Aliens are religion.
aliens are our religion, Lord. Oh my God, these people, they're just so weird. My questions are like, are Ashton and his wife Malia or Mahia? What's her name again?
I want to say Milana.
Yeah.
Milena. I don't.
You know,
I,
are they like, they wrote this letter to the judge and begged, told what a great guy the serial rapist was. And then they had to do another video yesterday apologizing for their support of a rapist and not being in support of the victims, because they run this nonprofit called Thor, which runs Spotlight, which is a database that scans the internet of all the adult websites and collects all of our faces, all of our emails, all of our names,
tattoos.
yeah, our phone numbers, and puts it in this database. And so, he's got custody of this database of all of our images and all of our stuff without our permission, under the guise of rescuing, human trafficking victims. And he's just got this long history. Ashton Kutcher's got this long history. I think it started with Demi Moore, in like 2010 or something. It was all the rage in Hollywood for all of these celebrities to associate their name with human trafficking rescuers, the great white rescuer people.
Modern day slavery.
All
But we're
right.
talking about Birth of the Nation, the first Hollywood film, and let's stick with modern day slavery, right?
Let me just share this one picture here. Yeah, it's Demi and Ashton join the Secretary General to launch a trust fund for victims of human trafficking. So, these are just sort of these has-been Hollywood people trying to keep their name in the press as do-gooders. And there's all that federal sex trafficking money that's just flowing all over the place. It's like this big, huge open spigot that anybody, who wants to, try to get some free money out of the government just has to say, oh, I'm I'm a human trafficker rescuer, and open their mouth and turn the spigot on, just drink all those American dollars.
Look how young he looks. He's 25 here and she's 41. But he looks like, you can't tell if this kid's 17 or 25. He looks like, maybe this is trafficking. Maybe Demi tricked
Yeah.
him into. Yes. I mean, he looks really young. Look at that baby face on him.
And remember, she did that movie in the middle of all this about strippers, and that really pissed off the
No,
horny.
the indecent exposure. I forget it was in it with her. I think it was Woody, what's his name from Cheers, but it was basically, I think Robert Redford was in it. He offers him $1 million for a night with his wife, and she's not allowed to tell him what happened.
Oh,
Oh yes, that was. You'll have to Google. It was called. I think it was a indecent proposal.
okay.
Yes,
And that was Demi Moore.
I think almost positive it was her in it.
Well, I'm thinking about this stripper movie that Demi Moore did. it's sometime around this time period. Here she is. Let's see, let me stop screen sharing. Let me go look for it. Here she is, pimping out all the, poor sex trafficking, trying to get all the, sex trafficking
money and
and um
yeah.
and then in the middle of it, oh, it's called Striptease. It was in 1996. Oh yeah, stars Demi Moore, Burt Reynolds.
Uh,
So yeah, Hollywood people like Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore and Mahila, whatever her name is, they just have, and so many others, right? There's that other one, what was her name? They just have this history of just, taking our industry, deciding that we're all traffic victims, and then, that they support law enforcement arresting us for prostitution. And, somehow that's supposed to be a rescue mission, having a criminal case laid on you. Um, just the most ridiculous stuff ever. So where do you think they got the money to put together this database of sex workers with all of our stuff?
that's probably something to do with that little nonprofit they have, Thor, which when I looked up on GuideStar, says they have $55 million in assets. Now on GuideStar, usually when you click a profile, you can see who's the agent, who's the board, the three top board members, their address, and it also rates you. And you can upload your 990s for
Oh, wait,
transparency.
it rates you? Oh my God. So customers have been rating us, our faces and our sexual services for, decades. And now there's another sort of rater system. Oh my
Well,
God.
it rates you like all nonprofits. If you turn in your 990s, you can get a gold level, but Thoroughly has platinum level. They've not uploaded one 990, and they've been around since 2010. You tend to wonder whether they're even compliance with the IRS. But I've never seen that on GuideStar. And as you saw from that spreadsheet I sent you from 2017, where we looked up all these trafficking orgs, I think over 100 of them, all of them had 990s. And when you clicked, you could see almost all the money went to these people's salaries, their offices, and for fundraising. Okay. So none of the money is going to victims or even trickling down to anyone involved in the sex industry. Just creates a lot of good jobs for the white proper ladies. So this has so much to do with classism, and throwing shade at sex workers. But yeah, I meant to update it, but haven't had time. But that's just enough data to show you there's a trend. And a lot of these orgs are getting the government money, the trafficking in persons money. So there's requirements to getting this money. One, your job is to create awareness about trafficking, host public trainings about spot trafficking, encourage people to call the police on sex workers, and don't support decriminalization or engage with sex worker right-led organizations. Now, also when it comes to research the government will fund on trafficking, they will only fund research that will tell them how to catch traffickers and prosecute them more effectively. They're not interested in making the victims whole or helping them heal. This is another wave, much like the 93 crime wave, which, as the drug wars winding down, they have to keep these prison beds filled. We signed contracts that we would keep so many beds full while we built them.
Look at this. Look at the spreadsheet. The Catholic Charities, $8 million. I mean,
this is how they promoted their false narratives, with the average age of entry is only 13 or 14, which debunked dozens of times. And all of these people keep republishing that fake data, fake news. But again, they got a First Amendment right. So we're just pointing out that they're liars and hypocrites.
Well, and they're actually rapists. I mean, the Catholic Church, like the Scientology Church, hides rapists and child sexual assault people from, from getting any consequences. So here you are taking money, to carry the government's narrative of what sex trafficking is. And then, you're covering for all these child molesters and rapists, like Danny Masterson, who drugged people.
Here's just another example. When I read the Pennsylvania report, I could only read like 3 pages.
What
So
report?
they write in their little, the priest guys write in their little notebook that there was inappropriate touch, but in reality, they sodomized a 7-year-old. Little different than inappropriate touch.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Oh, the AG did a report a couple years ago on like 300 rapist priests, and they don't report them to the government. They're not mandatory reporters like social workers or teachers or cops. They just move them to another district, and or they even send them to these rehabs, right? So what we do know is 97% of sexual abuse on children happens by someone that child knows, not through commercial sex.
Right.
But
Stop
we're
arresting us.
ignore that, and because it's not about stopping child abuse, it's about abolishing porn, prostitution, and strip clubs. That's their goal. Just like they want to get rid of trans and LGBT, and and make everyone white and coupled again.
Ew.
Yes.
Well, I mean, Ashton Kutcher it's just despicable that
Well,
this.
in 2015, he was spotted coming out of a Thai spa in LA.
Oh
They
yeah.
had his baseball hat down on his head. And they went into that spa and found that spa did provide sexual services. So and then 2 years later, he stood up in front of Congress talking about these poor children that were being raped, right? And I Googled, I think they're trying to claim they've saved 23,000 children. We wouldn't even had that many trafficking cases in the United States ever.
Well, what they say on their website, on Thor's website, is that they've identified. So they're just identifying people because that's what their database Spotlight does, is it scans all of the adult websites for our faces, tattoos, phone numbers, email addresses, but people like Ashton Kutcher, I know a couple guys who succumb to all of this government propaganda about how all the women inside the Asian massage parlors are all sex trafficking victims, that they're all forced, chained to the beds kind of situation. And so they go into the actual, massage parlor to go find out for themselves. And so, we've seen many women that work in the massage parlor who are, immigrant women, because of our bad immigration laws that force a lot of people to work in the sex trade because, prostitution is the social safety net in this country, right?
And they're older women. These women are usually in their 50s or 60s, and they can't get anything but a very physical, low-paid job, even if they're here legally.
Right. For people like you and me,
working in a restaurant is kind of rough on your body.
well, like people like you and me who are older, what chance of being hired somewhere would we even be able to get?
Right. We can't go to a strip club and say, give us a job.
Yeah, house mom. So yeah, so here's Ashton Kutcher coming out of the massage parlor doing his own research, deciding who is a sex trafficking victim and who needs his savior services. Ugh.
And it kind of reminds me back to religion. Over the years, I've had many texts or emails from these religious men claiming they want to save me from my sins.
Oh, yeah, we've all gotten those texts.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And you know how our escort ads is kind of like fluff porn, like real soft fluff, fluff stuff. So it's their rationalization that they can view this material. And then when I point out to them that God sees all sin the same, we're all sinners, whether you tell a lie or commit a murder, in his eyes, it's the same. And that little fun thing about Matthew 21:31, truthfully be told, prostitutes will enter the kingdom of God before most of you will call yourself Christians. So even the Bible has it that Jesus knew they were a bunch of friggin' hypocrites. He told them to stop throwing stones at whores. That's exactly what the trafficking narrative does. The trafficking narrative is promoting stigma and violence against women
Well,
involved in sex work.
and discrimination. I mean, they got, they get all these bad federal laws passed under the guise of saving the children, like FOSTA SESTA. That's resulted in a lot of discrimination. I think, the adult film people are really doing a great job right now of screaming about all the discrimination and access to financial institutions. People are losing their bank accounts. They don't have access to things, like Venmo or, all those types of things to be able to, cut out the third parties as much as they can to have access to their own, labor and, have custody over their own ability to negotiate for their own wages and their own safe work conditions. And here the banks are like, succumbing to all of this trafficking crap,
This is why
closing
they're
everybody's
threatening
account.
them with, they're threatening to audit banks if they do business as what the government considered high risk, which are adult industry, hookah bars. Like who cares about hookah bars? What's that about? Like that's kind of racist, right? And then when you think about when the banks were all criminals in 2009 and we bailed them out, they were too big. Only one person went to jail, right?
Right. Yeah,
So
we bailed
then
them
when it
out.
comes
That's
to,
right.
right now,
All
when we
our
talk
money.
about First Amendment, the Fifth District just said the White House violated First Amendment rights by putting pressure on social media to get rid of COVID misinformation. We all hate COVID misinformation, right? But they did exactly the same thing to do, and this to anything that is perceived as sexual conduct or even fluff, bikini body, sexy girls on Instagram,
Mhm.
and that seems to be okay. It's the same thing in the Backpage trial. I don't know why the prosecutor doesn't want them to talk about the First Amendment when that's what the case is about. And I loved it because the prosecutor opened the door. Now, the judge had ruled they couldn't bring up that there was a mistrial or any of the federal cases they won. And this prosecutor was a fool because he opened the door to Backpage versus Dart, where that federal judge said, I know there's legal adult entertainers. We got doms and strippers, and you can't claim every ad's a prostitute. But yet, that's exactly what FOSTA did. And sadly, Woodruff didn't even use that in their argument. Or there's no legal definition of what a prostitution ad is, right? Or the fact that Holt versus US 1913 Supreme Court says the federal government cannot regulate prostitution. It's left up to the states, but the Mann Act still counts. So this FOSTA law that says if you have 5 prostitution ads is the federal government trying to regulate prostitution. And as you've always taught me, Maxine, the government's our boss because they control our work situation. They're in control. They've been promoting stigma and violence. It's like Hunger Games on sex workers. Go for it, serial killers. Take these bitches out. And
Kutcher, go ahead. You creep. You can scan our websites, violate our privacy, keep all this little. I mean, could you just see all the creepy people that are like, oh, Ashton Kutcher, all the law enforcement agency people that have access to this website who are creeping over everybody's photos and their phone numbers. It's just creepy, Bella.
And
Ugh.
what's kind of crazy too is as far as the immunity laws we're trying to pass. So we can report violence and they can't arrest us. When I think about it, because I worked under decriminalization in Rhode Island,
Right.
they didn't try to rape, rob, and threaten you when they knew you had the ability to call the police. You didn't have to call the police just because you had the right to. Took those predators out. And they did the same thing after FOSTA. We saw, like, all of a sudden I was getting texts from weird pimps, and they don't usually bother us older women, right? Oh, we can make bank together, baby. And I just like, dude, Okay, so and then you scare off the good clients because they, they don't want to lose their jobs and families for, while everyone's scared, and you're left with the bottom of the barrel for clients. And then the poor sex worker that doesn't know how to pay a rent ahead or save money or make good decisions, they're the ones that get caught up in and that effect immediately.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
it's just like people like Ashton Kutcher who, and Danny Masterson who make jokes about, paying somebody to, stick their tongue down the throat of a 14-year-old, their actor, co-actor on their show. It's like, no, you can't pay us for
for
every
rape.
single sex.
So,
Yeah, for rape. You can't pay us for every single sex act that you want to provide, that you want us to provide for you. That's the problem with criminalization is it takes away your right to say yes. Yes, I'll provide these sex acts. And it takes away your right to say no. No, I don't want to do these sex acts. So it takes away everybody's right to negotiate, whether you're doing it for paid or for unpaid, labor. It takes everybody's right to say yes and right to say no away. And I just think those dumb Hollywood actors who keep throwing out this, we're trying to save, these poor chained to the bed, people from being raped, they don't understand that they're just really sort of what do you call it?
promoting the violence and exploitation. And here's another example. Under decrim, rape went down 30% Rhode Island from 2003 to 2000. It's going up. When Scott Cummings did his report on casual encounters, because when Craigslist shut the erotic section, all the ad moved to casual encounters, there was a 17% decline in female homicide across the country while no other violent crime went down. Okay.
Right.
To me, it's one thing when you meet a young academic that cares about trafficking and they were kind of brainwashed and they don't know better, right? And when you explain it to them, they're like, "Oh, you're right, Bella. That shit doesn't make sense." I wanted to volunteer. They said the only thing I could do was raise money for them, but I'm hesitant about because they started thinking about, does this make sense? Okay, so you can educate people like that, but the evil people like Melissa Farley and Donna Hughes, and they know exactly the harm. And if you remember back in 2014 in San Francisco when we fought for the right of sex workers to get access to victims' compensation. And what did Melissa Farley say? Now she claims all paid sexual services rape. Well, they're raped all the time. Why are they complaining now? So they don't care if we're raped. They care that we're getting paid. That's what this is about. It's okay to rape a woman. It's okay to beat a woman. The cops don't want to investigate rape or domestic violence. They're off on the perpetrator, but now we're going to use these violent predatory cops to interrogate 17-year-olds to ask who touched your cookie, okay? Or the time a cop asked a 17-year-old that was reporting a rape, "Are you sure this isn't just a morning after thing?" And
Look at what the
you know,
cops did in look at what the cops did in the Danny Masterson case when the victims did go forward and they did make the report to the police. It looked like the Scientology people were involved with the police department in so much that they were able to hide the reports of rape from the superiors inside their own police department. So it's like these churches and these religions, they have too much money, and America needs to turn off the spigot of all of this money that's being dumped.
And this brings me to, there's another 3-part series on Netflix called The Family. And it's really interesting. So all these religious leaders have this prayer breakfast. And even the president's been going to this thing for decades in the United States. But usually, if you're someone from China and you come here, you're supposed to acknowledge, even if you're not doing direct lobby, this is a loophole. So they all sit in a room. Now, they believe whoever is elected president, it's God's will. And even if this person rapes children, no matter what they do, we are to continue to support this person. And when you watch it and you think of the stuff that Trump did, right? It's just amazing.
That
And
the
this is how
current
I
president
explain
is
religion.
accused of doing.
You know, here in Rhode Island, we're the first state. Roger Williams actually was the one that created separation of church and state, because I think he was Protestant or Baptist or one. He wanted to switch and they threw him out. He came from Massachusetts over to Rhode Island. We have Roger Williams Federal Park that was donated the land to him. So what people don't get, that this isn't about the baker and the cake. And you know, a couple hundred years ago, the king cut your head off if you were the wrong religion. A little different. And on the top of that, the other thing about the movie The Most Hated Woman, this is the mother that was from Rhode Island too. She's the one that sued the school system for making kids stand up and pray during a presence. And again, our money says, in God we trust.
What are we doing?
And
Saying the Pledge of Allegiance in school. What the
well,
heck?
you had to bow your head, and you would get in trouble if you wouldn't stand up. You know, they would single you out. You're being rude. Or it's kind of like take the kneel thing, right? Oh no, we can't do that. That's
Nation of
offensive. If we
followers, a
call
nation
people
of
out
lemmings.
for racism, right?
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I got to get going here. Is there anything
But it
else
was
you want
always fun to chat with you, Maxine, and talking about the hypocrites. And I hope the world wakes up a little bit, gets woke.
Yeah, I hope those celebrities just stop. You don't see us going over to your darn old, you know, on your strike line,
Maybe we should get
telling
that.
everybody, oh, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. Yeah, we don't
One more thing before we wrap. In 2015, when Amnesty came out with their proposal to decriminalize sex workers globally to report their human rights, immediate Hollywood came out with, "Oh no, they're victims," and then even in Me Too. Now they're complaining about Harvey and that, well, you laid on the casting couch. You were already in a movie. You didn't need the money to pay your rent. And you chose to, excuse my language, suck his dick to get the role. And now 20 years later, you want to complain. And part of me wants to know, why does anyone give a shit what Hollywood thinks? Good to the strike. I hope they finally get paid a living wage. Even they're even exploiting their own people.
It's true. It's true. I mean, go clean up your own backyard, Hollywood. Ashton Kutcher, Demi Moore. Stay out of our business. We can take care of ourselves without your help of scanning our websites and creating a database full of sex workers. Ugh, gross. Okay, talk to you later, Belle.
Have a good one. Thanks, Max.